Okay, I think we're going to start. Good afternoon again. I will wait for you to respond. Good afternoon. I know, you had great lunch. You had good lunch, so where's the energy? Graveyard shift, not after all the cake that you had. Okay, welcome to our session. This is the first showcasing session that will be focusing on driving space innovation and investments through collaborative efforts. My name is Ngaledzani Mundau. I'm responsible for data products and services at the National Space Agency, and I'll be the moderator for this session. I think from the discussions we had this morning and earlier before lunch, we all agree that we need to collaborate. We need to work together so that we can tackle the challenges that we are faced with, including climate change, amongst others. I think a lot of the speakers agree to the fact that we can achieve more. In fact, we can achieve great things when we are working together. And together we are stronger than when one is focusing on solving a problem. And also we can actually focus on solving a problem when we are more than one, than when we are looking at a situation as an individual or as one organization. And together we can also innovate faster. I think from the previous session, the need for Africa, South Africa to innovate has been highlighted. So we can only achieve the innovation through research and development, but of course ensuring that we are not leaving other people outside the collaboration. I think the launch or the presentation by Dr. Tse indicated that we can actually do more when we are working together. But most importantly, when we are working with the people who can benefit from the solutions, because that's where you understand the problem even better and also gather the information that you need to resolve the issues that we are faced with. So this is an hour-and-a-half long session. I know that we are running a little bit behind schedule, so we should finish in time. That is in an hour and a half. So we have a lineup of great speakers. We have 8 presentations. And I think my speakers are here, except one. Please do come through. So each speaker will have 10 minutes to deliver their presentations, and then we'll take questions at the end. I think we do have someone said something about Slido. I don't have all the information, but if you can, there. So you are also more than welcome to share your questions using Slido. I hope that we'll have enough time to respond to them, but otherwise the speakers will do their best to keep to stay connected and respond to the questions. So our speakers will be sharing more on the work that they're doing in terms of fostering collaborations in South Africa in space, to ensure that we develop those sustainable solutions to address societal challenges. Some of the speakers will also look at showcasing the products or the solutions that were derived through collaborations between government entities and research institutions. So without wasting any more time, we'll go straight to the first presentation, which will be delivered by, maybe even before we go to the presentation, Happy Women's Month. I I think they tried to make up for it, but we could not even hear at the last, when they were closing the last session. But a beautiful month to all of us. And of course, our beautiful Women's Month to also our allies, those who are supporting women, to ensure that, we can do more in the office and everywhere where we have the opportunity to do so. Okay, so our first speaker is Ms. Nomfuneko Majaja from the DTIC, Space Affairs, and she will deliver a presentation on harnessing national space policy to catalyze collaboration and drive space investments. Let's welcome her with a hand.
So this is this for next. Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. I hope we had great lunch, even though I was a bit taken aback that we should be standing, but I think that's part of collaboration and, and coordination. We had to not to be too comfortable, but to communicate with each other. Seeing that we have a long lineup, I'll be very brief and take you through what we are doing within my Department of Trade and Industry. It's now end competition. That will be my broad contents about our mandate, about the national space policy. Everybody spoke about the national space policy here in the morning, starting from the CEO and from DECO and everybody else. It seems to be a foundation for what we are doing and what we'll be doing in the country. Over and above that, I will be talking to the Space Industry Development Framework, its implementation and how we see collaboration from there, because collaboration is the way to go. Colleagues, I think it would be amiss of me not to start with the key focus of our new administration. The Government of National Unity is focused on industrialization, poverty alleviation, and transformation. And DTI is very much in tune with that, as we are there to promote structural transformation towards a dynamic industrial and a globally competitive economy. So as the DTI, we are there to promote and enhance a competitive environment, a conducive environment for investments, for trade, and for all around enterprise development. I will quickly move on to space affairs, because DTI is quite broad, but we are here to listen to space as to what space can do for us for sustainable development. We are aware, I'm sure now, that our national space legislation, the primary space legislation, arises from the Space Affairs Act of 1993, which talks about establishment of the South African Council for Space Affairs, which is a regulatory authority in South Africa. Over and above that, the Affairs Act talks about this country determining the national space policy, which is providing guidance for private and public sector actors. So in the country, we're aware that this legislation is a bit outdated. 1993, now it's 20 plus years. The department and other stakeholders have been in this collaboration in trying to review and develop a new draft bill. That draft bill was finalized and was consulted to major government stakeholders, and the new administration will be looking into it. such that it can be put into the government gazette and being seen through the processes of approval. I don't think we must leave behind where is the legislation coming from. The legislation for any country is coming from the international governance, which is arising from the treaties, the 5 treaties of the United Nations Committee on Peaceful Uses of Outer Space. One of the CEOs is sitting as the chair at the moment, South Africa, represented by myself and other people set in various committees of this committee. So 4 major treaties that we have acceded to in South Africa: Outer Space Treaty, Liability and Registration Convention. I don't want to get very much in detail into that today, but they are very key in what we should be doing in the country in a peaceful manner, in a responsible way, because we know that each and every sector must be regulated, and that regulation is arising from international governance. I've spoken to SACSA, which is the national competent authority that is overseen by the department. It's responsible for issuing licenses. For those satellites we're talking about today that are being launched, they go through this committee to actually look at whether what the satellite is going to do is in order and is going to be very much helpful for the country. Over and above the legislation and the regulatory authority, South Africa has a national space policy which was led by our department together with the Department of Science and Technology. At the time it was called that, Dr. Mufwe, right? It's changing names every day. Our space policy is actually inclined or is having a foundation of an overarching principle, a principle that is to use space to contribute to economic growth and social development. So at the origin of our space policy, we were not putting very much ambitious means of going to the moon, but we want to use space for socio-economic development. It's based actually on certain principles that we maintain and develop robust set of capabilities in the country, which is the industry, services, and products. And those products must support national priorities. R&D we spoke about this whole morning. Over and above that, the National Space Policy seeks to foster development of the domestic industry towards greater level of self-sufficiency, such that we don't have to be very much dependent on other countries' satellites. Additionally, cooperation that we're talking about here is one of the principles of the space policy. Cooperation for mutually beneficial products is what we need to do at the African level, African continental level, at the regional, at the international, including other countries, especially the BRICS nations. What are the pertinent national space policy objectives? I've spoken to the regulatory environment that we need to facilitate. I've also spoken to the policy having to develop this competitive domestic commercial sector. Cooperation, again, comes very key. Over and above the policy, South Africa realized that actually the policy gave us a direction that we cannot be able to move further than the policy and the strategy that our brothers in science and technology developed, but we needed to have the space industrial framework which needs to guide us as to how we need to apply what is in the policy. So the framework as Dr. Sias mentioned earlier on, was developed in 2018-19 to provide guidance for the development and advancement of the industry, and more so broaden the participation within this industry so that we can see inclusive growth. So it's important that we see many people here today. It's important that we see the likes of Mayor Mahlangu, who are actually are using space within their agricultural endeavors. So this SIDF has also mapped economic opportunities in South Africa and in the continent and the world. And the SIDF shows commitment for government to be able to support and enhance the space ecosystem. What are the key recommendations of the SIDF? Amongst the key recommendations, I will not dwell too much, is for this country to have a comprehensive space program. Somebody else, I think this morning, said that we manufacture one satellite in 10 years and we go back and think, and 10 years passed, and then we come back and say we were manufacturing satellites, by the way. So what the SIDF says is that we need to have a continuous, comprehensive program where we don't have stop and starts, but we have this continuity for about 15 years or so to ensure sustainability, to ensure that we keep human resources within the industry. One of the programs that could assist us with doing that is the SATCOMS, Satellite Communications Program, that the Department of DCD is working on. And I'm sure also other departments are keen in seeing that we have the SATCOMs in the country to ensure that we care on the cyber crime, and we ensure cyber sovereignty, security, and reduce the costs of us buying a lot of data from other countries. More on our pillars of the SIDF entails the manufacturing build. This country requires to have a manufacturing build such that we can have this continuity. We need to have a constellation of satellites, and the DTIC is seeing itself as part of that continuity in the form of having the productive capacity programs. The SIH, we have been talking about it for a long time now, that is being led by DSI and SANSA. We have our DFI, Developmental Financial Institutions, like the IDC, the NEF. We have the Black Industrialist Program within the DTIC to assist in ensuring the broadening of the participation. All those we need to put into place such that we stimulate this industry. The moderators area, the EO program, especially seeing that we see a lot of SMMEs in the downstream, is quite keen, and that will be very much important. Investments within my department and other institutions of government are as detailed here. We have programs like the TRIP, the SPY, the TIA, and the incubation fund that would actually assist us in this direction. One of the members from the African countries spoke about the ARMC. The SIDF lifted the ARMC, that it needs to be resuscitated, and we need to implement that. Human capacity development is one of the priority areas that we need to see fit. We need to train our people. We need to train our people in space engineering, in other areas, digital skills, and the legal skills are also important. Already there is some collaboration taking place between ourselves, CSIR, NEOS, and SANSA, especially for the African Regional Regulatory Program. I need to speak more about the infrastructure that we need to to plow in as government, such that we can be able to ensure that the broader industry participates here. We have been talking about the HowTech facilities for a while. I think we have started something in that regard as government, as well as the OTR facility. We see that as a preferred launching site for the continent and the broader world, because we are at the southern tip of the continent. Various programs are here from our department and other agencies. There is one known that I must mention, the Kwebo Innovation Program, that is within the IDC, where government wants to see broader participation within this area. The PPs are the arrangements that are very much important. We have seen it fit that for us to be able to spearhead the collaboration, we need to have task teams from the various institutions as mentioned here. I got a love letter that I'm a bit slow. I will try to finalize quickly, and I will not repeat this because I've spoken to the TRIP program, but the TRIP program is one of those programs that show collaboration between academia, industry, and government. And if you can have more of these programs, that will be very much appreciated. And I am at the end of my presentation. In conclusion, ladies and gentlemen, we have seen that our space arena is based on international and domestic legislative framework. We need to continue to revise the space ecosystem and the space regulations to accommodate international and industry developments. We need to ensure proper and more coordination and implementation to move the industry forward. Collaboration, international cooperation is very much key for us to do whatever we want to do as a unity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ms. Majaja, and apologies for cutting you off. Thank you so much for sharing the instruments that we have in the country that we can use to foster collaboration while building those solutions or capabilities that will help us have a comprehensive space program, which is, I think, very important to ensure that we have the tools that we need. We build those operational tools that we need to address societal challenges. Our next speaker is Mr. Itumeleng Makoloi from the Department of Science and Innovation, and he will be presenting on harnessing space science and technology strategies to drive collaboration and innovation. Let's give him a hand while.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Want to observe all protocols and thank you to my panels, distinguished guests, honorable people. I see colleagues, old colleagues who are here. I greet you all. Thank you. My presentation, I'm going to stand this way so that I can see the moderator so she doesn't sneak on me and give me a laugh letter as well. The last time I was here, I advised CSIR to say, for me to be standing here, people like myself, who cannot just stand here and be talking, they need to give me a mic so I'm able to interact move around because I want to see people, how they are taking in. If I don't, then I'm able to be dynamic. When I'm standing here, then I'm limited. But anyway, they did not heed to my advice. All right. My presentation is basically to talk about what at the Department of Science and Innovation we are doing. And our space activities are premised on, firstly, the national, as the DTIC are the custodian of the space policy, we are the custodian of the space strategy. And but at the same time, we have the new white paper and the decadal plan. And the decadal plan, it's outlined in this slide, and you can see some of the grand challenges and the priorities. You can see the climate change. It's where we see space playing. We can also, hallelujah. If you don't complain, if you don't cry, nobody will listen to you. Thank you. And so when we look at these slides, we see space playing in all these areas. And so this is when the decadal plan came into being, I think 10 years ago, what we decided to do is then, from the department, we needed to do a theory of change to say exactly the activities that we are currently doing, are they going to take us to where we want to be? And we had to do this exercise. And it's a picture that speaks 1,000 words. It shows us the activities. Oh, no. Yeah, it shows us the activities that we normally would do. And it's very dynamic. I would just take, for example, we oversee SANSA. And if we go, we say, okay, from here, SANSA, relevant space, technologies, infrastructure development, we make sure that SANSA does that. And we say, okay, those are the outputs. We say, what are the sufficient space technologies? Okay, that's an outcome. And then viable space, and we say the impact, knowledge economy, innovation economy growth. So in ours, you can see, as we go through these, ultimately, how do we get there? So that we had to do that exercise. And that exercise, it may seem simple, but it allows you to be able to, at these various stages, to actually measure yourself, develop indicators to say, am I going in the right direction? That picture speaks 1,000 volumes. You can see even SANSA, if we again, I've made a mistake. If you come, SANSA, industry support pillars established, they have spoken up all of those things. All of these things come from, we need at this department, hold SANSA accountable to ensure that the funding that we are giving, they actually ultimately lead us to the impacts that we want to see. I think one of the issues that we also spoke about is national security, sovereignty, development. Those are the issues that we all strive towards. I'm not going to talk about global markets. A lot of people spoke about them this morning. Dr. Moafe spoke about the amount of the market of Africa, and maybe one particular one that I would focus on, taking into account of the time that I'll have, the BRICS partnerships that we're having there. You can see how much government is spending in space. China, you can see $8 billion US dollars. Russia, look at South Africa. We're spending only 35 million. Okay. Is that sufficient? Yes, it is sufficient because it gets us to somewhere. We want to demonstrate that with the little that we have, we can do more. But I'm saying, I'm flagging it. I'm flagging it so that we have a challenge to raise the thing that we have a challenge. We need to, that there's much more we can do. If we increase that, but where's the National Treasury? Anybody from? Nobody. Okay. So why are we doing all of this, of course, is that we need economic benefits. And those are, if you look at them, people talk, I'm sure National Treasury will say, what is the return on investment that we all looking for? And we have those quantitative, and when we have those qualitative. I'm not going to dwell much. This picture speaks a volume as well. It says that we've spoken all about it: economic growth, social benefits, and all of that, and economic benefits. So this is why we do all the work that we do in space. And these are the pillars that we drive from a government perspective. Space for society, space for economy, space for accessibility, space for diplomacy. I can just mention right now space diplomacy. We use space for, to bargain with other countries. We use space for society, economic, social benefit. This morning spoke about, this is exactly why we do all of this. And of course, partnerships. It is important as government, we map the partners or the landscape to understand exactly who's who in the who, or what in the zoo. Yeah, that one. So those are the kind of things, and we've mapped them. For example, we see, okay, let me go to the next slide. This slide, we've put ourselves, DSI right at the center. Some people may say no. If you say no, come. But speak the money, and we'll put you right there at the center. Because we are the people who's fund. If private sector was there, we would probably put them somewhere. But this is the landscape of what we see as we need to coordinate in the country. I don't know. I think for me, what is important, for me, this part, this is the only one that when I put it there and say, technology deployment. Who's going to do that? I don't know. All right. Is anyone any idea? Okay, no. All right, moving on. I think local industry development. This slide is what we used to call Space Inc., Space Incorporated. And it's a map about the capacity that we are having. Maybe some, companies have changed around, moved around. I'm sure somewhere, some changes took place. But Howtech is still there. GPS engineering is still there. Some are there. Yeah, they're still there. So we needed to map this. If you are not in here and you think you can play a role, please come and see me. The priority areas, of course, as I said in the first picture, that theory of change. Why do we do all of this? There must be a reason. We want to get to the impact. But as we do all of this, we need to do M&E. We need to do IP management. The work that we do, IP management, we can sit and talk about the whole night about IP management. And then we talk about internationalization and science diplomacy, which I've spoken to, industry support, and Ms. Nomfuneko Majaja spoke about the instruments within the DTIC that that we can tap into as industry. One incentive that South Africa, and especially, not South Africa, the space sector is not taking advantage of in the DSI is the tax incentive. The tax incentives speak to about the R&D that you do, and you get tax rebates based on the, the research that you do. 150%. Taking advantage of it, and then skills development we've spoken about that. And of course, this technology deployment, it's still something that we need to figure out, maybe within the DSI, to say, who's going to do that? It could be TIA, it could be, some agency, and I think we need not confuse the mandates of the various agencies. So who's going to do this technology deployment? It's another question. And then, of course, for example, I'm saying when you map these stakeholders, you need to know their roles and responsibilities. You can't be doing R&D and you are TIA. TIA is technology, innovation, commercialization, and you want to go. So there needs to be, so we needed to know this so that when we interact with all of the various stakeholders, we understand exactly the roles of each one. So when we do this kind of investment and collaboration, we ensure that literally we do grow the sector. Oh no, she's here. I'm done. This is our last slide. This is my last slide. We've given SANSA a number of, a lot of money. But not only SANSA, we've given, all other players, NRF, CSIR, SANSA, TIA, money to actually do space. Go to them. If you think they're not giving you enough and you want a bigger chance, come to us, convince us. But you will be scrutinized. So in essence, we want to upscale the support and development. For example, UKZN is not yet brilliant program that takes us to access to space. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my story.
Thank you so much, Mr. Makoloi, for sharing with us how you're supporting South Africa in terms of to ensure that we benefit from the space technology. Thanks also for reminding us that we need to not forget the reason why we do what we do. So we all know that we do what we do to ensure that there's contribution of space to economic growth and also for societal benefit. So it is important that we remind ourselves in the work that we do, but most importantly, I think from what he shared, he reminded us of where to go when you need to start those discussions on the collaboration. So I think he clearly demonstrated or illustrated the role players in the space industry. And together we can do more with all those role players, of course not forgetting those who are on the ground, the communities, those who are meant to be the main beneficiaries of the space technology. Our next speaker is Dr. Chirima from the Agricultural Research Council, who will be talking to bringing the fields, enhancing crop production insights through public-private partnership and collaboration. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Right, I am from the food security. So You guys have had some food, you must show some energy. Right, I come from the ARC, and what I'm going to share with you today is perhaps an example of how space technology can unlock some of the monies that are available. Ourselves, we don't make the money, but we are enablers. We allow information to be used to generate money. And there are probably two slides that are critical there. This is my outline. The second slide, which says why crop statistics, and then the next one, lessons learned. So, that's very important. These are the partners. We are a public entity ourselves, but then we have two private partners that we work with, and we have been working for more than 20 years to capacitate others to make money, and I think it's a very good example to showcase here. The partners are Spatial Intelligence, we call them SIQ, and Geoterra Image. So, I said this is an important slide. What's so important? How do farmers make money? That's the first thing. How does the country make money in terms of earning tax if there is export of the maize? So the government needs to know how much is going to trade and how much is going to keep for people to eat. That information is critical. Without space data, you cannot get that information. You can either speculate. So we work in that space, get that information to government. And then the second point, that's for food security. How much do we manage pricing of food? You see, industrialists, they tend to inflate figures by otherwise withholding information or flooding the market, and then they play around with those figures. So we give government information that is objective so that nobody can think around with those figures. And then, of course, we contribute to transport. How much is produced on the farms? How do we get it to Gauteng? Or how do we get it to Durban, for example, for export? We need to plan that in advance of the harvests. And then, to provide insights to government. The government is supporting a lot of farmers. Sometimes these farmers don't exist. So we need to tell government that you are funding somebody who's not farming. So what exactly is on the farm? We tell the government that thing. And then we inform them, if you put 50,000, how much is coming out of that? Which is very critical for government to prioritize where to put money. And we also tell them that sometimes in these areas, you can't produce maize. So don't keep funding people that produce maize in that area. So this slide is very important in the work that we do. Right, these are some of the things that we provide to government. This is just some slides to show what we provide. We show government and industry what area is available to produce whatever you want, what is arable. For example, in South Africa, we have 14 million hectares. Where are those 14 million hectares? How much of it is in Gauteng and how much is in this area? That's information which our policymakers want to have at their fingertips, and they can make the right policies in terms of distribution, what shares goes where. Right, this is another area to show. If you go and in this area, for example, and you tell the government that you produce maize there, they must be able to tell you that, no, you're lying. So we tell them where you can produce maize productively, and then they can fund for maize in that area. And that one shows where you can produce sunflower, and also you can, how much of it is coming from that area. This is the same wheat, all the bread and cereals. You can see the areas that we produce those things. They're very limited. So that's why you find it's expensive to buy some of those cereals in the supermarket. It's because we don't produce a lot of it. Soya beans is another example. And then we also give them information like this for the Free State, where, for example, there's been production, but people have decided to be lazy or have decided to shift and go into other areas. So we can give this information over years, and they can compare what is happening. Eventually, you can get a graph like this, which tells you from 2013 maybe to 2024, what's been happening in the Free State in terms of the production area, where the people, you give them farms and they've abandoned those farms, they've gone. Government needs to go and see, oh, those farms are lying fallow, nothing happening. So this kind of information helps them to form the right decision. This graph is important in the sense that our maize is traded on the stock exchange even before it's grown. We ask farmers, do you want to produce maize this year? They say yes. And the clever people at the stock exchange, they start computing the numbers and start selling the maize before it's even produced. So you need now to make sure you honor those contracts that the country signs. So what we do is we try and estimate production within a given margin of error. In this case, in this case, the government wants us to have our estimates or our computations within 5% of what is actually produced. And you can see that over the years, we've managed to do that, to produce estimates that are within 5% of the expected margins. But there are some years where we either have gone to sleep, or maybe there's a drought, an early drought, and later on the rains come, the crop picks up, and then we have misfired on a few years. But this is a very important graph to show at least why we keep doing this. For several years, we were just doing this for commercial farmers, because they were easy to map. The small scaleholder farmers were difficult to map because of a few things. One, their areas are so small. The resolution of satellite imagery does not pick that up. Second, sometimes they want to put maize together with some beans, together with some hemp or some other stuff. So now it's complicated to measure what comes out of there. So now we have been successful of late in the sense that we are using artificial intelligence. We have been now able to tease that out, get to give government information about what the smallholders do. This is a key sector in that even though they produce about 3 to 5% of the national agricultural output, but they are the ones that feed the nation. Most of our people are there. So if this sector is not supported properly, then everyone gets hungry. So it's key that we provide information. So we have funny things and the technology that's helping us to measure what they produce now. These are examples, for example, what they produce. In Limpopo now we can tell them the red dots showing where there's much maize, and here also what can be produced in each district. So the government can also make the right decision. Another show for the Vembe districts, you can even drill and find little pockets of what's produced where. And we can now start also giving trends over time and going to investigate if there is a dip, what is happening there, whether it's disease or people have just abandoned their farms. So that information becomes critical. Eastern Cape, likewise. So this is the terrain that we navigate when we are collecting this data, just to train our models. And then you can compare now between areas of the same district and see what is happening, and then give a prescribed solution or assistance to the farmers on whatever the challenges they are happening. The last and important slide, we as a partnership with the private companies, what did we learn over the years, 20 or so? We realized that private partners are more efficient than ourselves. So if you are trying to support trade on the stock exchange, sometimes it takes time to sign documents, but with private partners, the turnaround time is good. Us as the public, we bring accountability. We make sure that the information that is shared supports everyone. No one is left behind, and there is accountability to social issues like food security and so forth. Now, for this to succeed the way it is done for us, you need to have good contracts if you are engaged in private partners. Otherwise, the thing will collapse. Remember, the contracts need to be fair with everyone. We develop them now, but they'll be there 20 years, 40 years later. If there's no fairness in those contracts, they will not go anywhere. So this is the information that we wanted to share with you today. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Chirima, for the wonderful presentation, showcasing a successful public-private partnership that ensures that we are well fed when we attend conferences, especially the CSRR. And thank you also for sharing the lessons learned. I think we agree with you. We can do more with partnership with the private industry. If it was not for investment by a private company, I think Gautrain will still be a dream for South Africa. So thank you so much. So the next presentation will be by Dr. Bupape, Managing Director at Scion, and she'll be presenting on ground observations for sustainable society. Let's give a hand of applause as she comes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Allow me to say all protocol observed. My title says Ground Observations for a Sustainable Society, and I'm sure you are asking, we are talking space, why is she telling us about ground observations? And I'm here to tell you about interventions that are funded by the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation on our ground observations that you can use to calibrate the satellite products that you use. So that is really the point of my presentation, that you need ground observations to be able to do some calibration of some of the products. I work for the National Research Foundation. A lot of people know NRF as a funder for postgraduate bursaries, honors, masters, and PhDs. We also fund postdocs. But within the NRF, we also host national facilities. We've got 5 national facilities, 2 work in the astronomy area. We've got 1 that works within the nuclear science area, and then we've got 2 that work within the environment sector. And I work at the South African Environmental Observation Network, which was founded in 2002. As Scion, our vision is to establish world-class environmental platforms for a sustainable society. The dots that you see there, that is where we've got our offices. And the reason we've got offices distributed across the country is because with these ground observations, you want to put them in different parts of the country, and we want to have staff that are close to those networks so that they are able to maintain them. We've got 4 offices that focus on what we call terrestrial sciences. We've got 2 offices that focus on marine sciences. As you know, we are surrounded by the oceans, so it's important that we observe our oceans as well. And this data that we collect, we make it available online, and we have a node that is responsible for just that area, which we call Ulwazi node. So I was not here this morning, but I've seen that you have discussed, issues around climate change, and I just want to show here the relevance of observations when we talk about early warning systems. So there are what basic infrastructure that you require. So if you see a weather forecast on TV, that weather forecast is made possible by the fact that we've got observations, satellite information, so it's remote sensing information. We also have ground observation that all work together to inform these models. They are used to initialize these models, and then these models will run on some big computers, produce output, and that is the output that you will then see being shown on TV, showing our weather forecasts. So just in terms of satellite information, for us, I'm trained as a meteorologist, and we know that we closed the gap in terms of the skills of weather models when we started introducing satellite information into our models. So we do value information that we get from the satellite information, but as my presentation shows, we are still saying we need ground observations. So every single day, centers across the globe will send information to the ECMWF in the UK. So this ECMWF, I don't want to say what it is in full, but it's responsible for distributing this data to centers that run numerical weather models. So this data that you see here is the example of data that will go to those centers. So even though we've got satellite information, we still send this ground observations. So you can see there's a lot of blue that is dominating. So for this one that is shown here, it is data that was sent on 23 June 2024. So you can see, a lot of the blue indicates that most of the data is actually manual. However, ideally we want to have automatic stations because they provide us with higher temporal resolution. This here shows the gap that is there from the satellite products. A satellite, for example, does not measure temperature or it doesn't measure rainfall, so there are estimations that are made. The example I'm showing you here is rainfall. We picked a specific day. You can just check. Let's look at the side. This is the same message for Zambia. This is a message where we're doing work for Botswana. This is a NASA rainfall product. This is a University of Reading rainfall product. This is the ACMWF reanalysis. So this one combines both models as well as satellite. And the question we are asking here is how much rainfall was received on 18 February 2017. And you can see that the picture you see here is actually very different. And you can't even ask how much rainfall was received. So all these products are supposed to be calibrated with ground observations, which is why even as we are investing in space, putting up satellites, we also need to go out there and put up ground observations. So the points you see there, you can see the different colors are different biomes. So within Sion, we are putting up observations across the country. We are not able to cover this whole country, but where we've got dots, that is where you will find that we've got a number of stations. I'm just comparing here the type of network we have at Sion versus the others, because Sion is not the only one that has ground observations. South African Weather Service has, the ARC also has. So this slide actually shows you what we have. But then just to point out that the way we work within Sion is that we identify an area and we want to collect a really high resolution information of that area, and that information can then be used to study processes as well as to inform the development of satellite information. I'm showing you here, so on the map from the previous one, so if you see a dot which is from ARC or a dot from the South African Weather Service, that would mean that this is just one station. But in the case of Sion, when you see a dot, it basically means that is where we have a landscape and we're putting up a lot of observations there. This is the Northern Drakensberg. In this particular one, we've got 33 rainfall stations. Just in this one area, we've got 3 automatic weather stations, but we plan to put up more stations. So we measure a whole lot. So we are observing what's happening in terms of the biodiversity. We are looking at what's happening, is the biome changing because of climate change and all of that. So as you do your work and you use the satellite information, you can come. We take plants to see how they are growing. We look at the seedlings to see how quickly they are growing. So there's this big program now, the South African Research Infrastructure Roadmap that South Africa launched in 2016. So it is being, the lead implementer here is the Department of Science, Technology and Innovation. Since 2017, different organizations have been hosting different research infrastructure. So we've got 13 research infrastructures that we are implementing in South Africa, and different organizations are responsible for different ones. Within Sion, within the NRF, we are responsible for 3 of them. The Expanded Freshwater and Terrestrial Environmental Observation Network. We are also responsible for the Shallow Marine and Coastal Research Infrastructure, and we are also responsible for the South African Polar Research Infrastructure. And when you combine all of them, you can see that what we are doing there is with FTON, we are observing what's happening over land. So there are 6 landscapes that have been selected where we will be measuring a number of things. Along our coast, there are 4 sentinel sites where we will be taking really high resolution observations along our coast, and we are also taking observations going all the way to Antarctica. So we are interested in the Atlantic Ocean, we are interested in the Indian Ocean, and we are also interested in the Southern Ocean. And you will know, colleagues, when you experience severe weather, like right now we know in South Africa, the most natural disasters we are experiencing are floods, and they occur because of a weather system we call cut-off low systems. These occur over the ocean, and then they come and make landfall, which is why it's important that we also observe our oceans. This data that we collect, we make it available. So we've got an open data policy. So all the data that we are observing, you could be working for a company, you could be working for the public sector, you could be in a university, you can go onto our catalog and you can download our data. If you go there and you find some of the recent data is not there, feel free to get in touch with us. We will give you that data for free. And we are really experts when it comes to the open data platforms. So our open data platform recently won the NSTF South 32 data for research award. So this is an event that happened in July, so it's actually very new. And we also have what we call the Core Trust Seal certification, which means we can be trusted as an open data platform. So if you've got some data sets yourself that you want to make open, you can upload that data onto our platforms so that you make it available to more people. So all this infrastructure that I've spoken to, I've already said it, everything is open. So you can even go onto our landscape and do research. We work with the school learners, we work with educators, we work with postgraduate students, with researchers, with policymakers, and we are also open to working with the private sector. As I've mentioned, all these that we've got available, the data is open, the infrastructure is there for everybody to use. I'm not going to speak to all these points, but then I just would like to say, in as much as there are advancements regarding space, we are still doing something on the ground. And if you want to calibrate your information, if you are looking at a rainfall product from satellite, you can come take our data and just compare it with to see just, because with the ground observation studies where you have the ground truth, so you can use that information. You can also come use our data to inform if you are developing these products so that you can calibrate these products. I'm gonna stop there, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bupape, for a wonderful and insightful presentation on the ground observations and infrastructure that you have and its accessibility and importance. I do believe that we can never have too much data, no matter how it's acquired. What is, of course, important is that it's validated. We need information from all the sources. Thank you so much. So, how are you doing? You look very tired. You are tired. We are almost there. I'm sorry. So our next speaker is Dr. Lerato Shikwambana, who is a senior scientist, remote sensing scientist at the South African National Space Agency. And he will be talking on intelligence and insight tools to support an ethical and capable state that delivers quality services. Let's give him some energy.
Okay, I need the mic now. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, so my talk is basically on ongoing project that we have in SANSA, which is the development of the intelligent and insight tools. And this forms part of the SIH, which is the, okay, so I have two slides in titles here, okay. Yeah, so which is part of the Space Infrastructure Hub, which some speakers have touched on. So the first 2 points are basically what me and my colleagues sort of would focus on, the objectives. So the first objective is to develop a set of space applications and products that directly responds to the user needs and enable industry. And then also what we want to do is to build a core space infrastructure, both ground and space-based, for the delivery of these essential services. So another speaker also spoke about the space value chain, which is quite important. So most of our data that we're using for the intelligent tools are based on satellite. So what basically happens is that you have your satellite that collects data from at the ground level, and then it gets ingested, or we download the data to our ground stations, which we have at SANSA, and then we take that raw data and we process it using various tools, and then we sort of package it into a nice product which we can then deliver to industry, the private sector, and government. So, yeah, so we can't just sum thug what the client wants. So we had an intensive user requirement process that lasted about a year, between 2020 and 2021. We've got a very thick document where we spoke to stakeholders, and they actually told us what type of data or products that they wanted. Obviously, some of them were beyond us, but we will get to them at some point. But right now, yeah, so we'll work with what we have. So these are some of the thematic areas that we looked at. So your agriculture, your marine, and atmosphere. And also the user requirements also spoke to the downstream and the upstream missions. So that downstream requirements are the requirements that we actually, the data that we're using to actually develop the product, and the upstream are the sensors and the satellite that we plan on developing. So following our consultation with the stakeholders, we identified these key priority support tools that we need to develop. So that's in the disaster management, climate monitoring, change detection, public health, as well as security. So I'll go a little bit deep into about 4 of them. So, okay, so I must just maybe before I forget, I might just thank my colleagues for helping me put this presentation together, because every one of us are working on different thematics. So yeah, so this is one of the tools, the intelligence and insight tools that we're developing for flood. So what you're seeing here is a SAR image or video of a flood before the flooding, and we're actually seeing the flood as it happens. So this is one of the monitoring that we will introduce within the tools itself. And what you're seeing over here, it's a flood risk. So you can see that when the flood occurs, we can see that there's houses and infrastructure that will get damaged due to this. So what we're planning on doing to enhance this is use what you see basically on the flow model, is to put a lot of data set into our model and actually develop a flood mapping and the prediction model. So the next tool that we're developing, this one is currently there, which is the drought indicator. So basically we're using the VCI, which is the vegetation condition index. So the red basically means that, so here the red is high drought, meaning it's dry conditions where the green is loss of vegetation, and we're less likely to get a drought. And in terms of enhancing this drought indicator, we're planning on adding more indices, which are listed there, which I won't go into. But this will help us to determine, to develop an early warning and monitoring system, as also as to do some forecasting. So these are the partners at the bottom, right there, the people that we're working with to actually develop this tool. So another tool as well that's sort of we're developing, but what I'm showing is it's already in existence, is the mapping of human settlement and spatial planning. So the first map shows where the settlements are, and also we can also monitor the land consumption per capita. We also plan on doing some heat variability studies, to look at your heat waves, and also do some infrastructure management and spatial planning over here. So the last tool that I'll talk about is the one that I'm working on, which is the air quality intelligence tool. So basically, we will be measuring air quality or computing air quality, the equality index, using various pollutants. So what you're seeing there, it's an air quality, it's a time series of the air quality index in the Klip River area, which is very close to, not far from Vereeniging. And we did it for, like I said, it's a year long, and we can see how the indices, how the air quality changes per month. But we can also do this per day. So what we're seeing here, this is in Pretoria, so I took data for January, so we can actually check which days had the worst air quality and which one had sort of like a better air quality. So one of the novelty about this work is that no one has ever mapped an air quality index over South Africa, because the data that we have, ground-based data, is quite sparse. So we're using satellite data, which covers every part of the country. So we're able to map this air quality index. So this will be part of the intelligence tool that we have and inside. And we also be showing the distribution and the sources of these pollutants. For example, obviously we can see this is a hotspot at the Highveld, and we can see how it disperses and gets transported during the different days. And we can also do some air quality mapping overlaid. This is the city of Johannesburg. We can see the hotspot there. Not sure which part of Johannesburg that is, but you can see the red, which has a very bad air quality. And so also we also want to do obviously some predictions and some air quality forecasting using machine learning, and that's still under development. That's my last slide. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Shkwambana, for that informative presentation on the decision support tools that SANSA is developing. Slido is empty. We only have 2 questions. I don't know if you should have access to Slido. Please do share comments, or maybe we can take a question so that you can stay alive a little bit. Do you have any questions for our 5 speakers? Yeah, 5 speakers. We can take 2 questions. Otherwise, okay, there's a hand there and a hand there. Okay, where are the mics? Oh, and another hand there. Do we have anyone helping with the mics? Oh, okay, so you can use the sound machines in front of you. Please go ahead, sir.
Hi, good afternoon. Sorry, I just want to make you guys wake up a bit. The name is Murad Ismail. I'm from Embro Group of companies. I've been listening to quite a few of your presentations, and they're very good. There's this one snag I'm seeing here. Everybody's putting satellites into the air, and they're assuming that it's going to get there somehow. So there are people busy with rockets, but there's nobody looking at astronauts. So, we've got astronauts, we've got cosmonauts, and we have the whole of Africa, which we can call astronauts. So I think these astronauts, they cannot have commercial pilot licenses because it's not really a specific specification there. What they need is the piloted skills and some engineering skills. So I think what we should be doing is actually creating a South African based or African-based product, and South Africa's got very good weather, and we can then have a university that actually trains specifically for these astronauts. And I'm quite willing to assist in this respect. I've been a pilot since 1981, and I've been an inspector, so I understand how these things fit together. And if there's anybody that can, from Sensor that can direct me as to which division of Sensor has got this mandate to develop these astronauts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So we'll take the questions and then allow our panelists to respond. Memahale.
Okay, thank you so much, Chairperson, and good afternoon, colleagues. Okay, like this. Okay, thank you so much. Mine it's not a question per se, but it's a comment that will maybe to everyone who is here to help me to locate myself. I'm a public servant working for the municipality in the Northwest Province. And my province happened, I saw it's a sort of like development agriculture hub as the presenters were presenting there with the highest hectares of cultivation, which means good for the country. And from morning, though I stepped out just a bit, there were key issues that were raised around partnership, about speaking one language, moving in the same direction so that we can do more. And I realized that, I must say, I do appreciate the insight that we have received today. I'm equipped, but I want to know what is it that I'm taking home to my province and maybe to the country as a whole out of this space conference. Why I'm saying this, most of the presenters are talking about policies and space information. As a public servant from my sphere of government, it's where services are rendered. That means this is where this kind of information has to be consumed to inform decisions, to become proactive as opposed to being active, to preserve limited resources and maximize service delivery. So I realized that when presenters were referring to local, they were referring to South Africa, not local government, where the data is needed. So how do you help us to move together as part of public space or as part of local, as part of government, being the local government sphere, provincial government sphere, because that's where I operate. I've written my desires here out of this conference that I would like to see maybe in our next engagement, should I have the opportunity, of which I believe I will have, that it would be my desire. I attended a workshop sometimes in March, which talked about, I think, having structures or following United Nations structures that can help us to sort of involve everyone to consume geospatial information in order to advance service delivery. And in the Northwest Province, I did bring that to my province even prior by starting to participate in some of the subcommittees. So I would love if this engagement, it can sort of like tap into that structure, whereby we involve a local municipality, district municipality, provincial government, and national government. National government are more into policy framework.
I think we get the point, ma'am.
Yes.
Thank you so much. Don't get too angry, Womuafe, you see what you started. I think she's getting angry. She wants to see
No.
the benefits on the ground.
Thank
But
you
I
so
think,
much.
Yes, we'll get the
Thank you so much.
panelists
I wanted to
respond.
express my holy anger.
Oh, Lord have mercy. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
I think, okay. We feel you. Researcher, please summarize 30 seconds. I don't know if it's possible.
Yes, I do wear many hats, but I'll be brief. I'm aware of an initiative between the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition as well as DSI called the National Commercialization Strategy. I would urge those that are here within the ministries to formalize an operating structure for that particular strategy. It is unfortunate that when we talk about the intersection of high technology exports for socioeconomic impact, that we cannot have traction because the two departments do not have a body to operationalize this. I'm aware of a technology commercialization forum of which I chair one of the work streams. Even that has not been able to succeed. I urge your support in this regard, and I'm happy to render any of my energy, effort, insight, or otherwise.
Thank you very much. Panelists, do you want to respond? Please try and summarize, but I think we also got offers and desires.
I'm going to respond to the question about the astronauts particularly. I think we engage internationally because obviously astronauts needs to be sent to, trained in facilities that with the most established space agencies. And we have those collaborations that we have established with the Canadian Space Agency, for example, the Japanese Space Agency, JAXA, and so forth. So we have those established partnerships through SANSA as well, using SANSA as our agency. So it's programs that when you ask, can you point you in the direction? Yes, there's SANSA to point you. We need to still initiate some of those programs and to solidify those partnerships so that there are cohorts that we send out into those programs. So there are plans, basically. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Does anyone want to respond to, yes, the desires from the, yes.
Okay, on the municipalities, I'm just going to talk about one, I can actually say it's a project, but I can say it's a program because it started all the way in 2008. We've got the South African Risk and Vulnerability Atlas, which started in 2008. Initially, there was just a book that was published, but right now it is online. Within Zion, as I showed, there are observations that we collect. However, we also encourage municipalities, for example, to be able to upload their own data. Last week on Friday, I was engaging with the Gauteng province, Salga, Women Lekgotla, to encourage them to also upload their information, because once we've got a lot of information on the platform, you are then able to put different types of data, you overlay, you see how you compare one district compares to another. So we also put climate change projections, for example, that come with high resolution. That type of information is available on that platform. So I'm saying it can be used, so you can go there, check what is available, but then you can also come and upload your own data. And like I said, we encourage people to upload their own information so that they can compare against the others. Then I think it's just in terms of the knowledge that we are spreading on the ground regarding, your environmental sciences and, the use of information. We've got a science engagement program. We actually go out there. At the moment, we are not doing it with the municipalities, but we would like to do that. We've got an accredited geographic information system module. It's accredited by the South African Council for Educators. At the moment, we offer that to the school teachers. and we would like to offer it to the municipalities as well. So those that are interested, or if you want us to engage with you regarding that, I'll be very happy to share my details so that we can bring our team to come and offer that in Northwest.
Thank you very much. I think, Lerato, you don't have anything to say? Okay, but anyway, coming back to what Mayor Mohale indicated, I think we need to have more conversations with the end users. And the end users, you know, we find them, they need different information, different data sets processed to different levels. It is important that we, as SANSA and other DSI entities that are mandated to advance you know, space science and technology for societal benefit, it is important that we do engage with those people, I mean with the departments and municipalities who are responsible for implementing or for the implementations of those solutions that will have direct impact on the people on the ground. So it's very, very important, because if we don't do that, then how are we building that capable state? So it is important, so we definitely need to engage more. We should also engage with the communities, the chiefs who are allocating the land, you know, the communities in the vulnerable areas, like informal settlements, who, you know, are littering on wetlands, amongst others. Because if we don't go to that level, we will never then achieve the societal benefits that we need. So I'm sure we'll have more conversations, and also conversations with other municipalities as well. But I do believe that we also have programs that are actually aimed at ensuring that space data technology is taken down to everyone who needs it to support government priorities, including the DDM, amongst others. So let me not take this time and make it about me, since I'm not supposed to be presenting. So let's move on, but otherwise the conversations should definitely continue. So let's move on to our next speaker. Our next speaker will be Major General Matebula from the South African Air Force, who will be talking to the Future of Space Command impact on the space community. Thank you. Let's give him some.
Okay, thank you. Before I can commence, I'll just maybe add some points to the lady. And speaking as a citizen, not a public servant in the military, I do believe you have an MMC within your structures, and as well as the MEC. I would advise that you approach the MMC of Agriculture and the MEC of Agriculture to your provincial level. They will be able to assist you, because we work with them in another province in similar conditions. That is maybe something that will help you. To our pilot friend, we have already working on this from the South African National Defence Force perspective, but also the steering committee that we established with most of these members that are here on how we're going to train the astronauts. So hopefully in the next 2 days, you'll get to engage with us on what our plan is. Thank you for that. Okay, I do see that our principals are not here, but I see there's still Dr. Mufo here. So to the delegation of DSI, the delegation of CSIR, AMSCO, NEOS, DTIC, Ms. Majaja from SACSA, and academia, and ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. I'm Major General Matebula, the Chief Director of Force Preparation in the South African Air Force, and also the lead in this establishment of the Space Command establishment in the South African Air Force, and by extension, the South African National Defence Force. I don't speak only by myself here. I do have my wingmen and women So please don't ask questions because they're here to address those questions. If there's a problem with presentations, then it's their fault, not mine. However, as an Air Force officer or a soldier, you always are taught a lot of things. And from the Air Force perspective, you're taught about air power. And in air power, there's a lot of members that have coined, legends that have coined what air power is. And one of them was Marshal Montgomery, who said, if you lose the war in the air, you lose the war and you lose it very quickly. Please take note of that. I'll refer to that a bit later. I'm not known to be funny, so I do apologize for that. I have only one joke, only one. And those members in the space community, they do know the joke. So let's see if it's going to work. And after that, I'll try a second joke if it doesn't work. So my joke vault is empty, just like space. Okay, that didn't work. I have a second joke. However, the person this joke is directed to is not here. He just left us. So I hope the members of the space community can explain what it means after that. So I cannot pronounce capability. I can only say capability. If you don't understand, there is one of our CEO of SANSA. Please listen to him when he speaks, especially his pronunciations, then you get that joke. Okay, thank you. Just quickly can go to the aim. I'm going to speak very fast so you can be able to catch up with time, and unfortunately I have other tasks that I'm given to you. So the aim for this session from a military perspective is for us to say some insight on how a space command establishment within the Republic will add value to our societal challenges as well as add a public good to all of us. And hopefully that will add something to the space economy as presented by Mr. Itumakoloi, and to a certain degree alleviate the societal challenges that we all have in the country. So to go through that, I'll briefly go through what the Space Command is, or the Space Command concept, some observations that we recently observed during our visit to the Air and Space Chiefs Conference in London recently. Then I'll quickly highlight the need for a Space Command and how far we have come in a short period of time with our collaborative efforts between ourselves and most of the stakeholders that you see here today. And lastly, I'll share the what of what the Defense Force is doing in terms of Space Command, and hopefully that will give you a context of what we're working on. Now, for me to commence on this, we need to at least build a context for all of us so that when you ask questions, they can be relevant to what I've addressed. So for a broader context, we need to reflect on our mandate of the Department of Defense from a constitutional perspective with regard to defending our territorial integrity of the Republic. We have to take note that space is not anyone's territory, but it defines for us as a nation a way of life with all the technologies developed due to space exploration. Secondly, we are a developing nation, though we have a legacy and a very rich history in space development since, I do believe, from the 1950s. Lastly, we should add into context the National Development Plan as a responsibility of each and every one of us and all the government departments. In addition, we should consider the role of any defense force in any country, that we don't only defend the country with our lives, but we do add skills and professions to every single aspect of society that exists. So the South African National Defense Force is not exclusive to that. And with that, I do believe I've seen some engineers, former soldiers, some counterintelligence personnel here today, and maybe some pilots, if I stand corrected. So therefore, to answer the task that was requested by NEOS, the Defense Force adds a value by itself now. Now, if we move into a Space Command perspective, we should be adding value by default. So, what is Space Command? A Space Command, in a general definition, is basically a military structure organization responsible for space operations and space warfare. Just like air warfare, land warfare, maritime warfare, and cyber warfare. So space is the next line of warfare. A space command mostly consists of different arms of services. For us in the South African National Defense Force, you can speak about the Army, the Air Force, the Navy, the Military Health Services, and other divisions like the Defense Intelligence, and so forth. So the concept of Space Command was initially established to enhance command, control, communication, computers, intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. However, it has since evolved to the point that most countries have now their own national space strategies, and that is strictly for space warfare. And these include some aspects like space situational awareness, like the debris that are flying all over around our Earth, and of course, one of the biggest tools that we use as soldiers for warfare is deterrence. So, with South Africa being labeled a developing nation, is a Space Command division, section, force relevant to us? And as we've seen, we started participating in this forum 2 years ago. It was 2 people or 3 people, and then we increased to what we have done today. So the answer is simply yes. We need a Space Command, and I'll elaborate further as I go through. But from a global perspective, we should have commenced with our Space Command 5 to 10 years ago. So just to compare the evolution of space, the US Space Force is an organization that is tasked to train members, build logistics, build infrastructure for Space Command, for space operations, as well as Space Command, which is 2 different entities. But they are so big that they had to come up with a division, a combatant command on its own outside all the other services and divisions. Their strategy on Space Command starts with how they recruit from universities to the point how they're fighting space warfare, which exists. I do believe some advocates are not happy about that, but it's a big entity. Some of our BRICS counterparts have what we call an aerospace force. That includes China as well as the Russian Aerospace Force. And recently, since 2021 and 2020, the Royal Air Force as well as the Royal Australian Air Force have also commenced their Space Command, which is different from the US Air Force and China and Russia, because the Space Command is outside their Air Force. However, it is led by non-Air Force members. It's a collective effort. So, and lastly, there are space commands that are within the Air Force, like the Italian Air Force, the French Air Force. They call themselves the Air and Space Force, which means they revolutionized the Air Force to Air and Space Force. Now, just the opportunity that us as the South African Air Force had 2 weeks, a month ago, we had an opportunity to participate in the Global Air and Space Conference in London, and there was about 67 Air Force chiefs, if I can call it that. However, the observations that we see from that are very, very interesting, considering there was only 2 members from the continent that were represented. It was us and Nigeria. So it is very clear from this conference that space, from a military perspective, is congested, contested, and competitive. The last C is called collaborative effort. So therefore, we need not only collaborate as militaries, but we need to collaborate within the space fraternity. We had Mrs. Mahlangu today speak about how we should not go into politics, but make sure that we don't take the product that CSIR has developed from here. So it is through our collaborative effort, not only as military members or military air forces or African air forces or African militaries, but we should collaborate as a whole continent to make sure that we can be able to have products like the CSIR. Especially with most of the defense budgets being cut, and most of the budgets being cut throughout government entities, we should continue collaborating. In addition to that, the defense reviews or any other public policy document that is reviewed takes too long to finalize and approve and go through the processes so they can be able to attach funding for that so that we can be able to implement it in a quicker period of time. I do believe Dr. Mostert or Professor Mostert indicated the 10 years backwards revolution that we're going through. But from what we have started 2 years ago, I do believe it was the 29th of August as well, in this arena, with participating in this conference to today, we have evolved, and I'm comfortable with the pace of which we are going. Hence, we do believe that we are going with Afronauts, but in the document that we signed is called Saffronauts, if I remember correctly. Secondly, we need to grab that space is no longer an enabler of the multi-domain warfare by itself. It is now a domain on its own. It's the 5th domain. However, it requires all other domains to be integrated, and it offers us the ultimate tool on which wars are won without firing a single shot. And that tool is called deterrence. So if we have this space power, we'll be able to deter every other type of warfare that is coming our way, because we'll be able to monitor it from above with all the things I've mentioned, all the capabilities I mentioned, C4ISR, space situational awareness, and deterrence or defensive counter space. So, is space militarized? The answer is simply yes, it is. Is it risky to do so? Well, if I have to be honest, space was militarized a long time ago. I'll get to the next point. And it's been militarized since the first concept of space exploration. Same thing as any other type of warfare, we, or the defenses or defense forces have done that one. Now, the next point is a bit contentious, and I open up for everybody that will be attending the Air and Space Power Symposium, which I'll talk about later, that we do have a larger discussion on this in terms of the risk of weaponizing space and the impact thereof in the African continent, which will be discussed by some of our members that are sitting here and the members that are talking about the UN Corpus and the treaties as you saw indicated here. And I know some advocates that do not agree with our stance in the Defense Force on why we need to maybe weaponize. However, I do believe in 2007, the first weaponization of space was done, where, again, the debris that are floating around even still today was concluded in 2007. There's still tests that are going on with some other countries, which we need to figure out how we're going to avoid weaponizing like those other countries. So, why does the Republic need a space command? Earlier, I referred to our constitution. I referred to the mandate of the DoD. I referred to the National Development Plan. I referred to the fact that all of us is a social responsibility to be able to participate and help the next generation. And also referred to the SNDF's mandate. Do we need a space command? As I said, we need deterrence. So if you have a space command, you'll be able to deter. However, the indication of the engineers that are working within the companies, they are training. Your doctors, they are training. Most of it was done via the Defense Force. So now we are going into a new capability, a new domain of warfare. So if you have this command, which is probably going to be big, we will be able to also have professionals that are trained, just like the gentleman asked about the Afronauts. We'll be able to have the engineers, aerospace engineers. We do have Stellenbosch that done a lot of work. We do have CPUT. We have visited them. We're talking with them. So yes, the Republic needs a space command. And hopefully in the latter slides, I'll speak about what we've done in terms of the integrated launch capability steering committee that we have. Now, besides that, what I mentioned about the professions, the answer that we all should agree on is simply security. We need Space Command because of security. Security in all its forms. From food security, we had today health security, the security of our economic exclusive zones, the maritime security, environmental disasters that are happening with the Department of Forest, Fisheries and Environment. So we need space. We can monitor this from space a bit easier than flying with aircraft and doing that. We can detect with the synthetic aperture radars that has been talked about today, the optical lenses that have been developed by Dragonfly, Chimera, CubeSpace, New Space, and the rest of the industry members. And besides that, for us to be secure as a nation, for us as a DOD to defend the territorial integrity of the nation, we did not have, or we don't subscribe to a nuclear deterrent. So therefore, space is literally, for all of us, the final frontier. So, from our social as well as our public policies, the defense provides security as a public good. And it is our mandate. We do it for free. The private sector provides this security as a private good. But any private good, as we all know, needs to be paid for. So if the Republic gets a space command, and all other citizens will definitely benefit from this. And that security will be for free. But as I said, it's not security as a definition of the word, but security in all its forms. Food security, I'll use that one because we do understand what the lady was talking about. So that will be given for free. The defense will give you the data, everything else for free. We do not charge, we do not make money, we support. That is our job. So therefore, for us to have a constellation within the Republic, establish a space command will be for the benefit of all of us. So yes, we do need a space command. However, though the security is free, the private sector is required for all of us to realize this capability. Without the private sector, we won't have this. As we know, the private sector is much faster in accomplishing some of the requirements than the government, as the lady has attested that there's a lot of required for her to be able to do, and hopefully she'll be answered very soon. And as Professor Mostert has said, we are going back 10 years, and we don't want to do that. I do believe, as Mr. Majaja said, and the SANSA, we do have a national space strategy which makes provision for the participation of the National Defense Force. So what we are currently doing at the moment, we are also developing a national defense strategy which will address how we're going to accomplish the security that we all need. So if all of us define power as an authority to influence, then air and space power can be defined as the military use of the two domains to influence behaviors or outcomes of any situation, not only warfare, but any situation that is required. So by completing this strategy that we'll be doing in the Defense Force, we will be exercising our space power for the achievement of our national power via different goals, whether it be diplomatic goals, information goals, military goals, or economic goals. So what have we done now? We have collaborated, as I said, with SANSA, NEO, CSR, DSI, DTIC, AMSCO, universities, academia, to commence the establishment of Space Command, but also to implement the National Space Program, which is led by SANSA. We also are exploring the private-public partnership. I do like how Dr. Dutoy used it today about the purpose. We will use the P, I think, in that format so we can be able to achieve this program a bit quicker. This conference that we are on today is one of those collaborative efforts. As you can see, all of our logos are there. The planning was done by a collaborative effort. So I do believe our collaborative efforts is moving faster than we anticipated. We also have a committee, a steering committee, that strives to implement this strategy and other commitments of the space program, and of course, the Defense Space Command. In conclusion, to be specific on the South African Air Force Space Command or the South African Defense Force Space Command, as you heard this morning from the Chief of the Air Force, the requirements have been completed and have been approved within the DOD. We are now at an advanced stage to make sure that the specifics of what, how, when is completed. That will include a timeline, and that will be led by the members that you see here. They are not now the Space Command Integrated Planning Team. They are now a project team which means the project is registered and the members are moving swiftly to make sure that within the next 2 years, we'll have structures in place. Hopefully, we will be literally off the ground. And for us, what we found out in 2 years ago, with the help of SANZA and all the other members that are sitting here, we have the infrastructure. We just need to make sure that it is coordinated and it's linked and it works. And within the DOD, we have exactly that what is required to enhance or hasten this requirement. As I said, we foresee that in the next 2 years, we'll be literally off the ground. I do believe, as I indicated earlier, we require a collective approach to National Treasury or all our other principles to secure a solution to our societal challenges, by extension, the need of our nation space capability. So let us not lose the space war. Let us do our best to make sure that we can explore and set the legacy for our generations to come. And let us do it very quickly. I'll see you at the next Air Space Power Symposium in a month's time on the 17th of September at the AAED. I thank you. Fights on.
Thank you very much, General, for educating us on Space Command, its benefit, and also articulating the opportunities that it brings in terms of collaborations. I don't think I'm qualified to add anything since I'm wearing a green jacket. So we'll move on. So our next speaker is Ms. Ndlovu. Please take the floor. We can give her a hand. Is that for pointing or next? Pointing. So this is for next. Next is for this one. Okay.
Greetings to our host and the organizing committee from NESC, distinguished guests. I'd like to keep it short by saying all protocols observed. My topic today is on commercialization pathways for the creation of new space ventures. I'm going to try and keep it at a very high level, and I will engage further on the topic for those who are interested to take up the opportunity that the state is driving in trying to make sure that we can actually get to a point where we industrialize much more than how we are at the current rate, using the state as an investor in innovation and creating new ventures that can take up the global space economy. This slide is more around just background. Since this is not National Space Conference, I'm a state player, I'm a public servant, so I'm representing South Africa. And as much as we do have colleagues from other countries. So who we are as a country, I'd like to have a disclaimer that 60 million population size is subject to the next census and confirmation from our new Home Affairs Minister, Stats SA, and probably Gayton McKenzie on those undisclosed number of IDs that are blocked. So averagely, I'm just going to play it safe on 60 million population size. As South Africa, we do benefit from SACU, which is the Southern African Customs Union, where we have member countries, where we have free trade agreements agreed upon on shared tariffs and the currency that we use to trade. It is a very important establishment so that we can trade amongst each other as the southern part of the continent, And I believe as much as we do have the Africa Free Trade Contractual Agreement, we could borrow from such protocols to be able to then trade with other regions, your Maghrebs, your East Africa, Francophone, Lusophone Africa, and the likes. As a country, we do have participation in regional markets, which is us selling to Africa and African countries selling to us, and also foreign markets. I'm not discussing industry-specific solutions. We are a global economic player as a country. And we do have an advanced legislative system. I trust that there are areas of improvement, but we are a progressive space and a progressive country as a whole. We have more areas to improve, but we are well on track on that. We have incentives, we've got special economic zones, we've got industrial development zones, and we need to take advantage of this. I would like to also remind the audience that my presentation is more around harnessing all of these capabilities we have to industrialize. We have corporate incentives that can enable the growth of industries in this country and also participation of new entrants. And we also have permutations on what we need to do and how do we need to comply with the law as we trade and as we become new entrants in the industrial sectors. But we also have challenges that we cannot shy away from as a country. Energy security, although I'm smiling because we are prioritizing that and we're working over that, and it looks like we are on the upside. And less SMMEs will suffer as more and more of our energy is restored into our grid. We have high inequality attributed to legacy issues, skills issues, and limited access to opportunities, where the empowered remain to grow at the expense of the disempowered and disenfranchised. And these are the areas that we need to dive deeper into and see how, as a country, as we industrialize, how do we truncate the outputs and outcomes of everything that we're doing down to grassroots level. We have a crime issue, and I'm very glad that our colleagues from the security cluster are big participants in our conference, and I trust that we can expect this to be a priority, that space technologies can also come and play to assist the security clusters in helping us address crime. Back to why I'm talking about commercialization. In my industry, commercialization is referred to the translation of intellectual property, which is creations of the mind. The state has exhaustively invested in the knowledge creation agenda for several administrations. I would like to just say since 1994. However, we have had, our previous speakers alluded to the fact that even in the 50s, and we always had capability and we needed to expand it and make sure that other players are also becoming more knowledge players and driving breakthroughs in discovering scientific discoveries and in innovations that are improving the status quo. And now, when you look at how we are operating in this space, the state has several research and development support schemes that new entrants can take up to be able to now be initiated in the space, or maybe take up so that they'll be able to grow and take on partnerships with other existing players. And we are, I've just wanted to make reference to the Bartle-based system. This is the equivalent of what we refer as the IPR Act in South Africa. The Bartle was just the US system where they decided that we've got pockets of excellence throughout the country, we've got brilliant minds throughout the country, we've got highly competent and capable resources in all these established universities and other areas where it's maybe just closed R&D spaces where even no one knows about. Predominantly, I would like to just mention in the military sector where R&D is very, very, very intense. However, it's not elucidated to the external public in much more than we would want to know about. And the Badol system said, as a state, we want to then now exploit all those capabilities, and we create companies that are highly competitive. And this is where, if we are to accept the fact that all the products that we are consuming, most of them, including my iPad, and the cloud services and everything else that comes within the marketplace, a fair share of that comes from products that were developed through R&D investments. And with us, I've already mentioned the IPR Act. I won't go much into detail. However, this is the state's intervention in also making sure that we do have a legal system that supports the provision of identification, protection, management, and exploitation of intellectual property. And we also have a capability where we have a central repository of where we are able to take stock of our IP, and we should be able to track and trace what happens to that publicly funded IP, which is funded by the cents coming from the treasury, which comes from the taxpayers, both corporate and civil, and how do we then see what happens to that intellectual property. We have this, I've mentioned that it's NIPMO, and we do have interventions where technology development and commercialization is happening. I'm part of the teams that is working in that domain, a technology innovation agency. However, we do have other development finance houses in the country. My colleagues have mentioned them by list, including the DTIC, that are participating in this space. We have something that is very disproportionate. We have high IP output in South Africa in comparison to the rest of the region. However, my assertion and the real core of my topic is the fact that at what juncture or how can we take this high IP output from all these pockets of excellence that are happening in the country? We should be translating that into industrial ventures at a very high rate. These are the reasons why technology is important in industrialization. I won't read them one by one to save time, but in a nutshell, how we industrialize, we move from A to B as species, as humanity, and as countries by discovering new breakthroughs of how to do things better, faster, cheaper, less output, more money, or maybe more people and less effort. All of those discoveries, and be it in any other sector, is for the purpose of us coming to where we are. We are now at the fourth industrial revolution. Way back when we were in the first industrial revolution, we relied on steam power to be able to execute a lot of things. And then we moved into the second revolution, where we wanted to see how can we add some level of automation in our factories. And then the third one, where we actually embedded more ICT in our day-to-day lives, and we were actually focusing on more efficiency and less on human labor. Now we are in a world where it is all interconnected. We are living in a converged world where machines are talking to each other, they are digesting and processing information while we're sleeping. Our job now is to exploit whatever comes out of that and create monetary opportunities and social impact that we can see. To my other guest or delegate there that has mentioned that, how do we translate this to the ground roots level where people can benefit from industrialization? As a country, we need to rely on innovation to keep moving forward, because we will be able to produce competitive products introduce new techniques of how to do things better, cheaper, as I've mentioned. Also be able to secure source of materials in whatever endeavors that we are doing in our respective industries, and making sure that we have proper rational use of energy sources for the benefit of humanity, or rather for the benefit of our national interest, which is socio-economic growth. I'd like to quote a very random thought piece that came from my colleague, Dr. Nali Mudau. We were discussing something that I cannot even remember. However, she mentioned that, Malise, it's always important to remember the why. So even in this case, nevertheless, why are we here? The question would be, why space? Why invest in space? My colleagues have already exhaustively explained their rationale into why, and I'm just adding my element to it, or rather even my relevance to the why. Why is the state prioritizing space as a competence that they feel that the country requires or needs to rely on? I've mentioned the many reasons. These are the priority reasons, in my opinion, but rather my professional opinion. And all of this, from where I'm sitting, it is enabled by the Space Infrastructure Hub. The need for the state to invest in infrastructure, space infrastructure, capabilities, a means of creating space data value chains, to train people that will man the industry and participate in taking up opportunities in the local and global space economy. And the element that I have just come in the SIH to also help enable them, foster the creation of new space entrances by supporting the development and commercialization of space science intellectual property, or rather innovation in simple terms. I will mention the bottom line, which says, at the rate of our economic growth, that being the GDP, we need to create a way of converting the space science capabilities that we have in the country and the innovations into new ventures that will advance industrial development. And we should do that, knowing that when we do that, not only are we also addressing the job creation element of it, but also we are creating future entrepreneurs that will create more companies that will contribute back to the coffers of the state, and the state can actually take care of its people, and we have better quality of life. My last slide is around why do we need to commercialize and how do we go about doing that. This is my area of competence, and I would also like to publicly declare that I am the individual that is going to take up my principal's domain on technology diffusion element of our priorities, because this is where the heart of innovation lies. Innovation is one element of breakthrough discovery, disclosure, and the other element of commercialization. When you say a technology has commercialized, it has reached its intended user, and the intended user is paying for consuming that technology, but also there is a sustainability model that makes sure that that venture does not die. We are talking about then scaling and having companies that are now being acquired, and having companies that are trading in foreign currency, and having our country coffers getting fatter and fatter, and us eventually becoming a wealthy country. So these are the reasons why we have to drive commercialization, because we have the investment. As he has mentioned, there is a pot of money to be able to do this. And we need to make sure that when we do that, we're creating a much more richer space value chain, where there's permutations that are in place for inbound IP, which is coming to us. We need to make sure that we are contracting at the right way so that we can have that source IP, and outbound IP, we must also be able to send our IP out of the country. And new ventures, this is where the innovation exists, and now there is a new startup venture that is going to go into the market through direct commercialization and actually do that part. And you have the technology transfer where you will have your science councils, your academias, are opting to license out their technology so that other people, as industry players, can come and take that opportunity and take it to the market, but they still get their returns in the process. I will skip all of the other pointers there, but I trust that they were flighted long enough for the audience to see. And at the end of the day, our role as the state will be to make sure that we converge this type of industrial engagements. We provide market access, collaborative partnerships, and between the state organs, non-state private sector R&D houses, technology startups, and business councils, so that all players will be able to take advantage of the opportunities that are already in the innovations that have already consumed state money, and we want to see those innovations in the marketplace where somebody is using it on a day-to-day or is paying for those services to make much more money. The last slide on my end is just some good news. I did present at the Communities of Practice sometime in June, and I did mention that the SIH, which is the Space Infrastructure Hub, has provisioned a pot of money to invest in the downstream element of space, where now we want to invest in innovations and the commercialization of those innovations. So the call is out. It was launched yesterday. So those are the good news, because I promised, now I'm back with the good news. And we invite all relevant players to apply so that we will be able to play our part as the state in supporting the DSI and the SIH in creating a very strong, diverse, and very, very transformed space economy for our country. I thank you for your indulgence and your time, and I look forward to engaging with all of you throughout the contract. Thank you.
Thank you, Malisi, for a wonderful presentation. Showcasing the opportunities that we have as a country to support the commercialization of the research output from the different stakeholders. It's also good to hear that we have money. Isn't it good? Money is not the problem. So, yeah. So we need to make sure that we take advantage of the money that we have access to. But of course, most importantly, we need to promote the development of those solutions to address the societal challenges. We are almost there, and apologies, we are running late. So our last presentation will be from Colonel Hilton Klein from AMD Space Committee, and Numulax, I hope I pronounced that right, Executive Chairperson, who will be talking to unlocking opportunities through strategic investments and collaboration. Let's give him a hand as he comes.
Should I say good evening, ladies and gentlemen? But I can say to you, they've left the best for last. We're talking about money here. And when the lady mentioned the word money, you started to laugh. So that's what I'm going to talk about. All protocol is observed, so I'm going to dig into my talk. Today I'm proud to be here and celebrate our space industry, because they're getting there. The work that public and private entities are doing in South Africa and Africa is nothing short of exceptional, and these are exciting times. I'm talking about Africa's GDP growth for the African continent is expected to average 3.8 to 4.2 in 2024-2025. The continent is set to remain the second fastest growing region of Asia and Africa. Apart from Asia, we're the second fastest growing economy. Just imagine if we get this space thing right that we are talking about today. We will grow our GDP in Africa to at least 5.8 to 7.2%. And just imagine how much jobs we will create in Africa, in particular South Africa we're talking about, and how much the economy will benefit from that. Are you still with me? But for that, we need money. We've got great plans. We've got great programs, but we need now to execute those programs. Am I right? And for the execution part of that programs, we need the money. And ladies and gentlemen, I maybe should conclude my presentation, Mr. Tumeleng. If we look at 8 billion US dollar and 35 million US dollar, billion. I rest my case. We need money. Let me talk to you, next slide. Let me talk to you about our program. We all know that these are some of the programs that South Africa in particular have embarked on. It's happening with the USA in Markiesfontein, a huge program around that. Europe, we're working with Europe on the Sutherland program. China, we're working with in the International Lunar Research Station. Russia, we're working with on Hartbeespoort. And we're busy with all these kind of exciting projects. But these projects, they need money. What is our current challenges? To execute to the best of our abilities these projects. The Africa Space Program, in particular, has a lack of under-resourced African aerospace engineers and scientists. Am I right? That's why we need to train astronauts. And I want to add to our member at the back, our pilot at the back, that the University of the Western Cape are currently busy with that program of astronauts. We have a lack of under-resourced African aerospace engineers, in particular, black engineers. We have limitations in local and Africa continental production and manufacturing capabilities. Where is the factories? Where are the facilities to do all the things that we want to do in the space manufacturing capacity? We have a lack of space science and innovation centers, and our sister has spoken about that. And we hope that we can have more data centers for our municipalities, for our provinces, for our defense force, for our other entities that belongs to the space environment. We have got a challenge because we don't have a space launch vehicle capability. We don't have that. And we hope that with this Russian program that everybody's talking about, that was in the media and everywhere, that we will be able to capacitate and set up a space launch vehicle to launch our satellites and also our rockets into the sky. We have a lack of an independently developed space program. Africa do not have an independent developed space program. If all of us that sat here this morning, and if you heard our friends from the other countries' space programs, we would know that there is a call for unity. And unity is power. Just imagine if Africa's space unite We do not need the West. We do not need the East. We do not need anybody else but then ourselves. And that's where we want to get. We don't want to get to the point where things are happening in Africa and our friends that we're renting from at the moment, space switches off. And what happens to us? We need to have our own. The optimizing of socioeconomic spin-offs in health, energy, and minerals and agricultural space, we all spoke about that programs, but these expensive programs, we need the money. No sovereignty insofar as cyber communications and data is concerned. That's a challenge at this moment in South Africa and Africa. We pay almost 7 billion rands a year to rent space on satellites. We can do that ourselves. I hope ICASA hears us and helps us and guides us in that space. Access to funding is definitely needed. Exorbitant cost of accessing space-based data and space-based solutions, we need investments. And we say the development of the Africa Space Fund, and this one was found by the private sector, and I'm so glad that everybody is talking about public-private participation, because there is a solution. We've seen the Americans moving to the space of the private sector, where they had a private sector space program from 1998, and we've seen that NASA has moved into SpaceX with Elon Musk and his team, and they're privatizing most of these programs. We've seen the same happening with Roscosmos and Glavcosmos. In Russia, we've seen the same happening in the rest of our huge space programs, especially in the BRICS programs. And we hope that South Africa will follow suit. We need to support our space program between the public sector and the private sector. And then this program will be successful. So within our Africa Space Fund, we raise capital with the sole purpose of developing space programs within Africa. The survival and growth of African human race is also part of a fundamental basic business premise in order to develop lift launches for vehicles and rockets into space for the exclusive use of Africa. You've seen the exploration of modern space civilization to stimulate growth in Africa. You've seen the development, people have spoken about the development and management of technical skills within the sector, but for that we need funding. The private sector are ready to come alongside government, in particular the South African government, to work with them in making this a reality. We need to explore to the fullest the commercial use of space in Africa because of Africa's interest and development. Why an Africa Space Fund? Because of space advancement in Africa. That's what we want. We want African solutions to Africa's space problems. And in order to do that, we need to have a black industrialization program, which we already started. We need to work on training and development of African aerospace engineers and scientists, including our astronauts. We need more technology hubs, space technology hubs. We need more infrastructure development. We need to see these capabilities and facilities happening. We need more production and manufacturing of space technology and equipment. We need more science and innovation programs. We need especially more data centers of excellence. And we are currently busy talking to other entities to develop these centers of excellence. And in particular in our health security and our food security industry and our defense industry, where we represent the Defense Force industrial exploration program by AMD, the Aerospace, Maritime and Defense Industry Program, we can make this a success. The Africa Fund investment will add value to both public and private sector, as we said, and ultimately increase revenues to Africa's space program. The direct support out of this program is sovereignty of the space-based solutions, increased safety and security, job creation in particular, and building our economy. Skills transfer and training and communications is a given. If we have the Africa Space Fund, which was now developed by the private sector, if we support our government and Africa's governments, there will be a greater success and access to global and continental connectivity. A greater success for our defense industry to do what they need to do to protect our territorial waters, our people, health, to ensure that health innovation takes place, and communication. South Africa and Africa as a space hub, we need it established for the African continent. In closing, ladies and gentlemen, our defense industry, our private sector companies are working towards developing African solutions for Africa's space challenges. And that's why we have implemented the Africa Space Fund, so that private sector and government can work together to execute their tasking, and that is to save Africa's people from itself and the world. Thank you.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation, informing us of the opportunities that are available to support the development of space infrastructure and solutions. And most importantly, of course, opportunities that can foster collaborations and partnerships between government and private industry. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of our session. We are really behind time, so I think if we have any further questions, we can take them to the networking session, which is due to start at, I think, past. What time is it now? Yes, in few minutes. Oh, okay, it was supposed to have started already. Apologies for that. Otherwise, please join me in thanking our speakers for the wonderful presentations and educating us and empowering us with information that we can definitely use in the near future to do our jobs better, to take our work to the next level, and to collaborate even better and solve the societal challenges that we are faced with. Please join me in thanking them. They've been sitting for more than 2 hours. I'm sorry. Okay, but most importantly, lastly, let's thank all of you for being a wonderful and great audience. It would not have been a success if it was not for you. So the networking session is taking place at the same place as the exhibition hall where we've been having our breaks. And tomorrow we start, same place, same time, Lulu? Is it 9? Tomorrow. Okay, see you tomorrow. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Are we gonna take?